I love talking about this topic. And for me, I'm a digital strategist. So a good portion of my life is online. And today we're going to talk about, I'm just working on sharing my screen. Today we're going to talk about how to set boundaries essentially with ourselves so that we can have a healthy relationship with our screens. Because we know that the average person nowadays spends anywhere between 9 and 18 hours a day behind a screen. And the younger you go across all the demographics, the more time. And it is clear, especially with young people, that their time limited online it's only limited by the fact that they must sleep, eat, and shower. And if they can eat and be online, they'll do it. If they can shower and be online, they'll do it. So today we're going to talk about how we can go online with Christ in this new normal, in this new reality where technology now holds a different place in our lives during COVID, because I believe that we're never going back to the old normal. We're going to a new normal with new expectations and a new way of doing life, worship, relationship building, and so on. So today we're going to start with some tips on how to stay spiritually and mentally healthy in the digital space. Now you'll find that throughout the presentation, I talk about the digital mission field like it's a place, and we'll dig into why in a little bit. But we're also going to, in the second part, we're going to talk about how you can use your digital influence to build relationships, build community, build trust, actually use it for good, following Jesus' example, to improve the well-being of others and to share the gospel through digital discipleship and digital door knocking. So it's not just about how can we stay healthy, but how can we serve? How can we serve others in the digital space and in this new reality? Because we know, and I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but something you said reminded me of this. We know those who volunteer, those who help others, always feel like mentally or spiritually better. It's a way of improving our own health when we serve others. So I find this quote very interesting. If necessity is the mother of invention, discontent is the father of progress. So one of the things that I think is going on is that COVID has forever changed the way we relate to technology. So when we finally do move past this crisis, it will be to a new normal. COVID has accomplished more in the last 10 months than all the digital advocates of the last 20 years. It's sped up adaptation to a matter of weeks, not decades. It has forever changed how we use digital tools and technologies for daily life, for relationships, for education, for worship, work, and even fitness. Now, you might say, well, it's actually in the way of our worship. It's in the way of spreading the gospel. And I say that we have a mission field that is full of untapped potential. So when we go back to Exodus 4, God asked Moses, what is in your hand? Now, oftentimes we think of the digital field, we think of social media, we think of digital tools as something bad. But when we look at what, an example of something in a way that's similar, it's a tool, it's neutral. God asked Moses, what is in your hand? And in his hand was a staff. It is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It could be used to do bad. It could be used to beat sheep. It could be used to harm others, or it could be used to protect and lead. But here's the interesting thing. With God in the mix, that simple shepherd's staff not only performed miracles, but led God's children out of the bondage of slavery in Israel. And I believe today, all the lessons of the Bible are relevant to us today. And I believe that this is one because I believe God is asking us, what is in your hand? How can you use these tools and technologies to perform my will and glorify my name? Because social media is the ultimate equalizer. We have a voice, and with that comes the enhanced ability to participate in discipleship and evangelism. You don't need permission to start sharing or connecting with others in the digital space. You can use your influence to improve the lives of others. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be, a trained theologian. You can answer the gospel call. You can answer that call to discipleship today with your own influence. Because I personally believe that God is using COVID to move us into the digital mission field. Because for too long, we have associated the church, we have associated worship with a building. And in March 15th, I remember last year so vividly because I was very, very sick that week. Turns out I The doctor is like 95% sure we actually had COVID. I crawled out of bed on March 15th. My phone started to explode. Social media started to explode because everything started shutting down. And what I saw, and I knew from reading the Bible that the mockers and the scoffers would come, but I did not anticipate seeing them on March 15th. Repeatedly over all the channels that I'm connected with, and I'm probably an admin on 50 different Christian social media platforms, kept saying, where is your God now? This is your fault. And it shook me because I was like, why are you attacking us? Why are you blaming us? And then I stopped for a moment. I realized, where is my God? That's a very profound question, because my God is on the move or we're stuck at home. Because in the apostolic period, God used the persecution. He didn't cause the persecution of the apostles, but he used it as they went to these foreign regions to take the gospel to new lands. And so too today, I believe God has used this pandemic to close the church doors so we can figure out how to extend the worship experience, to extend our Christian experience beyond the confines of time and space in a building to a 24/7 kingdom that meets the spiritual, the physical, and the emotional needs of its community. So we have to reignite the spirit of the early Adventist church with a grassroots movement that starts with individual members. This is a work all of you can do. And, like I said before, there's a place for everybody in this, because if you are online, it doesn't matter whether you have 4 friends or 40,000 connections. You have influence, and what you do with that influence matters. We have never before have we been able to share our messages of hope and wholeness around the globe with the click of a button. It used to be you had to go to a foreign land to be a missionary. You can be a missionary at home. The Western world has become more secularized than ever before. The mission field is next door and is just as legitimate. And we have to go where people spend their time. And right now, that's behind a screen. So I see 9 to 18 hours a day of opportunity to reach people with our messages. And I know some of you thinking, because for so long, we as a church have basically shied away from these technologies and stuck with our traditional means, because the question is, but isn't social media dangerous? But then my challenge to that is, God asks us to use what we have. This is what we have. And when has danger ever stopped us from going into the physical mission field? How many evangelistic giants have sacrificed their health and even their life by going into the physical mission field? And yet we have this silo, this barrier between our spiritual life and our time spent online. And when we realize that our time spent online and what we share online is an extension of ourselves, and it should be an extension of our faith into this digital mission field. So I'm going to begin with 4 ways that you can actually set boundaries, mostly with yourself, because it's usually me who has to set the boundaries with me. I'm the one who's usually violating them. So these are the 4 tips that you can do to help maintain your spiritual and mental health in the digital space. It's important that we learn to safeguard our own spirituality as well as develop a healthy work-life balance, because many of us now work entirely behind a screen or on Zoom all day long. So another way to frame this is to make sure you are spiritually fed before you minister to others. So point number 1, guard the edges of your day. So again, Jesus gives us an example here. He got up very early in the morning when it was still dark. He left the house. He left the place of busyness. He went somewhere in solitude and he prayed. So start and end the day without technology, because it's not just social media. We can easily be consumed by all the buzzes, all the dings, all the notifications, all the emails. As soon as we get out of bed, set that healthy boundary with yourself so that the negative aspects of technology do not drag you down. And then when the day is done, do it again. Find your quiet place, whatever that looks like for you, and use it to have face-to-face time with your Bible, with God in prayer, and spend it to be face-to-face with those you live with and the people you can connect with. So when you stay online throughout the evening, that can disrupt your sleep and even result in depression. So if you choose to browse social media to stave off loneliness and pain, you usually will find the exact opposite of what you're looking for. And I'm going to send you guys a link to an article that's actually links to like the scientific studies and stuff like that. Point number 2 is you can actually structure your day, your social media, your spiritual work part of your day, like a missionary outpost center. So essentially, a physical output center is a place outside the city where you can get away from your daily work and connect with God. So this is where, a missionary community that often provides education, restoration, and preparation for work to be done in the city. So in this case, it's a place to provide restoration for you for work to be done in the digital space, whether that's work for your job, whether it's work for spreading the gospel, whatever it is. And this is where you can return. And, it's a means of social media, if we think of it as a means of building bridges and relationships with people to create a positive influence within the community. You can use the connective power of social media to share your faith and show your friends that you care about them. But remember, you have to sort of maintain your output center. So this is related to that guarding the edges of your day. You want a distinctly separate part of your life where you can recalibrate and then go back to your mission field or your work field stronger than ever before, because you don't want to live in social media and you don't want your world to be controlled by it. So another tip to think of is to go online with a clear purpose. And we'll talk in the second part a little bit more about this idea of having a purpose. You want to treat social media like a post office. Typically, at a post office, you enter, you pick up mail, you drop off outgoing mail and packages. Most people don't hang out in a post office all day. That would be strange. So if you go online with a plan, this helps prevent us from getting distracted from our original purpose and mission. Because remember, Jesus sent people out 2 by 2. Think of your second, accountability partner as your plan. What are you going online for? That is your central mission. So go on to social media to drop off some content, pick up some content, connect with friends, check, performance stats if you're on a like a profile account or something, and then leave. Don't move in. Because we've all had those like experiences where we intend to watch one video because we're looking up how to try to make a recipe or fix something around the house. And then 2 hours later, we don't know how the time got away. Somehow we're watching cat videos and string theory videos, and we never actually accomplished what we meant to accomplish. So go online with purpose, go in, get out when you're done. And the last note is, it's like grocery shopping when you're hungry. If you are lonely and you have nothing to do, don't try to fill the void by going online, because God has not called us to live in social media, but to influence people through these tools, these digital tools and technologies. So, like I said, it's like going grocery shopping when you're hungry or when you're pregnant. Like I come home with the strangest things these days. Temptation will always take you further than you want to go when you're vulnerable. It's a tool. Think of social media, think of digital tools and technologies as a tool. It is to be used by you, not to use you. Go there to serve and not be served. And so we have to set those boundaries and stick with them so that we can be better equipped to serve others. So, and again, throughout this presentation, if you have a question or just a thought or something you want to share, please share in the chat box. It helps us so you don't forget your question, but it's also so I know that you're engaged and you like what's going on. So in the second part, we're going to actually talk about those practical tips. So we talked about how to set boundaries with ourselves. So then how do you use your digital influence for good? And this is something a lot of us have not thought about, because overwhelmingly, we think of our digital lives as separate from our faith. Like our faith doesn't belong in the digital realm, because we have for too long believed that social media is inherently bad. So I just want to say that many efforts fail when it comes to helping others and sharing the gospel, because they simply lack clear direction. So whether you're an individual or you're working on behalf of a ministry or another type of, organization, I highly recommend that you choose one purpose to start with, especially if this is new to you, and then think creatively about how you can use your influence and time spent online to fulfill that purpose and keep that purpose forever before you. So here's a couple of, examples of purposes. You can pick one, or you can come up with one totally on your own. And again, you're going to get this presentation, so don't panic. You don't have to take a bunch of notes, but it could be simply that you want to create awareness about community opportunities, food drives, toy drives, donation opportunities, or opportunities for those who need services. Whatever you want to do, you can use your influence to spread the gospel and to spread hope. Right now, we've never needed that more than ever before. People are suffering in isolation and loneliness. We have a very powerful message that people need to hear. You can use your influence to minister for good. You can listen. You can improve the well-being of others and members of the broader community. So not just your internal church, but the broader community, by paying attention and taking action. We'll have some tips for that. And of course, you can use digital tools and technologies to invite others into participation and to Bible studies and whatever else have you. And this is a biblical model, because what did Jesus do? Jesus sought first to attend to people's spiritual needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs. Then he bid them come and follow. Right now, we use social media for personal entertainment, to share about our own lives, or to invite people to events. But Jesus, he didn't walk around saying, hey guys, I'm going to have a Sermon on the Mount coming up. It's going to be great. We're going to cover the Beatitudes. You should be there. He met people's needs in the moment, or he answered the question they were answering. And then he bid them come and follow. He built that relationship. He built that trust, and he attended to the issue that they were dealing with in that moment. And what else did he do? And this is something we can all model in our social media presence. We can share stories of what God is doing in our lives, or what he's doing in other people's lives. We can share godly scripture-based wisdom, things that uplift people and give them hope. You can attend to people's needs physically and spiritually. We'll talk about what I actually mean by that in a moment. You can answer people's questions regarding spiritual matters and everyday challenges. The number one reason people share content online is to improve the well-being of others. The church, corporately and individually, should be the leader in creating content that improves the well-being of others, which means we should be the leader in creating shareable content. He gave people hope. He created community. He developed an engaged, active church body. This is how every member who's connected can be engaged and active. He led people to wholeness, and he equipped people to be disciples and to replicate the model. So when you share a good thing, it is not confined to the digital space. It may start in the digital space, but is not confined. So how do you get started? The number one thing that you can do to get started is, it doesn't matter whether it's text, it's email, it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform you're on, it's WhatsApp. Connect with people within your faith community and beyond. So make sure you're connected with your other church members. Make sure you're connected with your community members. One of the great things that have happened with COVID in my life is I've actually gotten to know my neighbors and connect with them and be part of a community and minister to them. And, because otherwise, if you're not connected, you can't reach them and make them aware of your faith, your ministry, your services, if they aren't connected to you. So figure out ways to use digital tools and technology, to use this tool to connect with others and to go where they spend their time. And what does community look like in the digital space? It looks surprisingly like it looks like in the physical place. And these are all built upon those biblical models of outreach and evangelism. We know the most effective way to minister to others is frequently through friendship evangelism. Digital technologies essentially just allow us to listen more closely to our community, to see what's going on in people's daily lives when we may only see them once a month. And we can scale up traditional friendship evangelism and meet people's needs by staying more connected and just generally more aware, because every opportunity to connect is an opportunity to advance the kingdom. And, honestly, people share an amazing amount of information online. They really do. So if you go online with intention, and you're going to hear me use this word intention a lot, if we're intentional with how we go online and we use that opportunity to listen to what people are sharing as a means of building relationship, we can let people know that we are truly interested in their lives and that you care for them and are with them on their journey. You may want to pick just a few people to focus on. This is what I've done. I have like about 5 people that I specifically focus in on that I feel that I can reach or influence. And I'm constantly checking their posts, seeing what's going on in their lives, and I'm engaging with them and sending them messages. Many of them are not at all religious, and that has opened up many opportunities for me to pray with them and to help them in many different ways. And I just love this quote. Being listened to is so close to being loved that most people don't know the difference. So when we talk about a 360 community care strategy, it's basically using your influence to better understand the needs of others and to make a tangible impact in the real world through meeting those needs. So the way you scale up friendship evangelism, connect with others, pay attention to what they're posting, learn about them, take the time, show interest, engage, inform them of different opportunities, take advantage of opportunities to serve. People might post, well, I've lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills this, month, or, I need help with groceries or whatever people post, or they might need help moving or whatever. The information that I've learned about people online has helped me serve them, whether that's sending them grocery money or ordering food for them or helping them with their resume, because I know what's going on in their life. And I have we all have skills that we can offer to help others. You can listen more than you can speak, and you can use these digital tools to follow up on a regular basis. So you don't just listen to them once, you don't just pray with them once, but you continually check in on them. And this ties into building trust and relationship, and this idea that, when we go online with purpose and we better understand the felt needs of those you're trying to reach, and you practically improve the well-being of others, this is how you can strengthen those relationships and trust, letting them know that you're always there for them. And it ties into this beautiful phrase that Ellen White uses, which is called benevolent disinterest. Basically, you do good with no strings attached. It's not, I'm going to help you if you, come to my Bible study. It's, I'm just doing good because I have the ability to do good and, speak into your life. So we can show people through our actions online that we see them, that we care about them, and that we are there for them. So again, biblical concept, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. You can pay attention to what your contacts post, and you can take appropriate action. Now, I assume you're empathetic people. Use your digital influence to expand your reach. This is an opportunity to demonstrate care and intentions to your faith community or those you are trying to reach, because many people are not interested in what you know until they know how much you care. Many people pay closer attention to the gospel of action than our words. So how can we use our influence for action? Some practical tips is, set aside time each day to pay attention and look for those cries of help. Because I ask myself, how many prayers can we simply answer by paying attention? Because people share so much online. If we just paid attention, sisters, people post amazing stuff. During COVID, I'm just using a couple personal examples, and I speak vaguely because I believe in people's privacy. But, there was a young person I know who's not a believer, who lost their job with COVID because the campus shut down and they can't work off campus because they're a foreign student. And they were posting about this online and, just in general terms. And so I often take it privately. And so I direct message them and I was like, are you going to be okay? Do you need a little money? Blah, blah, blah. Talking with them, I sent them grocery money. And since then, I've prayed with them several times, and I've seen how a door has opened for them. And, God has worked in their life, even though they're not yet a believer. So the practical tips you can take to minister to people are to ask questions. Again, listen more than you speak. Respond in a meaningful way. And what I mean by a meaningful way is do more than type, I'm sorry. Do more than just type thoughts and prayers. And I know that you're empathetic people. When you say that someone's in your thoughts and in your prayers, I know you're telling the truth. But you needed to see if you can take it one step further. One of the things I do which actually makes me feel really vulnerable, is I'll actually ask permission to pray for someone, especially if they're a non-Christian. And if they give me permission, I will record a prayer, whether it's through Facebook direct message, WhatsApp, or just through my iPhone. I'll record myself petitioning God on their behalf, and I'll send it to them, because if they're in crisis, they may not want to pick up the phone. They might not be able to pick up the phone, but they can still hear you petitioning God on their behalf, and it's much more meaningful to them. It has a much more profound effect, and I've seen that work in my life doing it for others, and it's had amazing results. Through asking questions and having those meaningful responses, figure out what the felt need of the individual is. We all have ideas about what we think people need in each situation. We might even make judgments. But try starting with what their felt need is, the need that they express, the help that they want, and that can open a lot more doors. You can pray for them. You can take action, whether that's getting them groceries, helping them with their resume, doing a myriad of other things that you can do to assist them depending on the situation, and follow up as long as necessary so that they know it's not a one-time deal, that you're still praying for them, you're still checking on them week by week. And one of the cool things I've actually noticed with one community app next door is they actually have a help map now, and you can actually, if you have certain skills or whatever that you're willing to share with others, you can open those doors of opportunities to minister to your community by offering those services online. Now, the next step in this, of course, is to always be transparent. And you can do that through being open, objective, and honest about your faith, about your causes, your involvement in the ministry, but also just your everyday life. So people, again, they don't feel like you have like sort of this ulterior motive, or you're trying to keep something from them. Respect others' privacy. Model that in all you do. Don't share personal information about people without permission. And even that's medical information. Like, pretty well-meaning people, we will openly pray for people with medical conditions, but due to like HIPAA regulations, we really should ask them permission before we do something like that, especially if it's recorded over social media. And of course, be vulnerable, show you're human. So oftentimes the criticism we hear from younger generations is that they feel oftentimes our advice doesn't stem from compassion and understanding, but sort of like moral superiority. Talk about how you can relate to people. Talk about how, maybe the mistakes you've made in life and God has been there for you. So just be vulnerable, build that trust, build those relationships, and be authentic. So showcase a whole person. This is why people are attracted to personalities. If you're always only talking about one thing, then people would tune it out. If you want to share this healthy new recipe you've tried online, do it. That's part of the health ministry. If you want to just share a beautiful picture from a sunrise when you're out on your walk, do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But do more. What I'm asking you to do is to do more than just share about your own life, but also do it with intention. Share hope, share wholeness, use your influence to improve the lives of others. Because when you showcase a whole person and, you're consistent, people can relate to you, they can be inspired, and they become interested in your passions. And if they see your faith on display in your everyday life, they can be drawn to that. And so part of this is also considering what perceptions people may already have of you and how you want them to view you. So you can use your digital influence to help paint a fuller, more authentic picture of yourself, and make sure you're always telling that consistent story with every touch point people have with you. This is actually a branding principle, so that like the person they meet in person is the same person they meet online. Because unfortunately, sisters, I see so many people that seem like great, loving people in person, and then online they say things they would never dare say to someone's face. And we really want to make sure that we are always reflecting Christ and understanding that our digital presence is an extension of self, and that in the digital world we should also be reflecting Christ. So then here's how do we improve the well-being of others? We tend to think of what happens in the digital space staying in the digital space, but that is simply not true. It crosses over all the time. And so when we think about what prayers can be answered by simply pay attention, once you've connected with people online, you've built those relationships and trust, then you can seek to attend to their felt needs as Jesus did. So again, we want to listen and we want to create or curate content that speaks to those needs. We want to find ways to speak to those needs, because something we post can be that aha moment for someone in your newsfeed. When we look at the 8 root causes of the 10 leading causes of death, this is from the Florida Hospital Center, we see 8 ways the church body can actually be attending to these needs and possibly saving lives, which is amazing. So the 8 root causes are things like a meaningless existence and low self-esteem or self-worth. If you know that you're created in the image of God and God knows every hair on your head, you have a purpose, you have self-worth. We have, lack of education, economic disparity, loneliness and social isolation, external and internal stress. These are all things that we as a church body can address in those around us, and we can make their lives better. So what this means is be intentional with how you spend your time online. Reframe how you think about your time online. Pay attention to others, their posts, proactively reach out and take action in appropriate and timely ways. And use your online influence and the knowledge that you're getting online about people and those relationships that you're building to eventually meet with them in the real world, to make impact in the real world, because the bridge is not that hard to cross. Now, this is where we get to the 4th point, which is sharing the gospel online. So you've built trust, you've built relationships, you've built community, you've connected with others, you've started improving the well-being of others. Now we bid them come and follow. So when we start thinking about content as mission, we know that people search online for answers to their questions. What better place for us to share our messages of hope and wholeness, to share the gospel truth, because ultimately we do not have a message problem. We have the gospel, the greatest story ever told of Christ's birth, life, self-sacrificing death, resurrection, and soon return. We have the voice of prophecy. We have the ministry of healing. We have the 3 angels message. We do not have a message problem. We have a distribution problem. And to help resolve that, you can participate in something called digital door knocking. This is simply where you use your social influence to share these messages, to create opportunity for others to engage with your faith when it's convenient for them, because it might be convenient for them at 3 a.m. or 10 p.m. or 2 p.m. It's socially, for a long time, it hasn't been that socially acceptable to knock on people's doors. Not to mention, you can barely find people home and available pre-COVID. Now is an opportunity that you can share your faith and people can engage with it when it makes sense to them. And you can create content if you want. That might be just your own personal testimonies. That might be you sharing, a new recipe you're trying and a picture of the food and some message tied to the ministry of healing or health. It might, you be sharing different things, related to spiritual needs specific to your community, or you can simply curate content, because the burden for creation is not on everyone. You can share content from your church and other ministries that you follow. You don't have to create it, but you can share it. And don't just create or curate, ask, how will their attitude or perceptions of God, themselves, or the situation change because of that piece of content you shared? Remember, one of the 8 root causes of the 10 leading causes of death is meaningless existence, low self-esteem, and low confidence. How can you help people see that they are a child of God and that they are worth, essentially eternity? We can share stories, and stories are great because they never tell us what to think. They cause us to think. They don't tell us what to feel. They cause us to feel. It's human. It's an easy way to relate. And you can share the testimonies of what God is doing in your life, or you can share the stories of others, because people can't argue with your experience. They can be drawn to a story. We're drawn into stories. And you can tell the whole story. You can fill in the gaps for people. You can complete the stories of those who find themselves changed because of the gospel, or tell your own personal experience. You can, it's part of the human experience. It's part of, showing your full humanity and drawing others together. Here's some tips for digital door knocking. You can check through this yourself, but it's basically forwarding emails, texting people, sharing content, live streaming things, even just reacting to Christian content online can help expand the organic, reach of it. Find ways to connect with people and just follow and support Christian groups online. Now, the last point is people feel safe behind their screens. If someone reaches out to you, make sure you're accessible and responsive, because when someone reaches out to you, don't leave them waiting, fearful that you may have rejected them. So give options. Make sure the people you connect with know how to reach for you. You can even, if you do something for prayer, you can even say, like this post and I'll pray for you by name, no strings attached, something easy, or just how people can connect with you if they have questions or whatever. Check daily. If you're one of those people that have like 1,000 unread messages like in your inbox, it is time to Marie Kondo your life, because I shudder at how many messages are lost because they get lost in the clutter when someone reaches out to you. Get in the habit of checking once a day for any direct messages, emails, text, whatever it is, and make sure you respond quickly. Even if you can't, respond fully to the question. So like for my husband and I's ministry, Angels in the Glen, he had to write a sermon this week, couldn't respond to some of the questions. We had somebody write in who actually was asking, like, what happens when you die? We responded and said, we got your message. We're a little busy this week, but we're going to get back to you this weekend. So they at least know that you acknowledge that you heard them and that they're not being ignored. And as you're going through this, you might say, how do I know I'm even making a difference? Well, we tend to focus on the quick wins, but this is really a long tail approach. Ask yourself, are you sharing the love of Christ? Are you engaging in meaningful conversations? Are you painting a more authentic picture of yourself and your faith? Are you building relationships? Do you better understand the people you're connected with? And have you found ways to improve the well-being of others? That's how you gauge success. And I always like to say, don't give up too soon. It takes time. I'm always amazed by like what I hear from people in my friends network. I think a post didn't really resonate. It didn't really matter. And then I'll hear months later that it really struck a chord with somebody. It meant something to them. It inspired them in some way. So all I have to say is what we do with our influence matters. It doesn't matter if it only influences one person. That is what matters. And so we must accept that we may never fully know the extent of impact this side of heaven, but we are still called to share the good news. And that's what we can do with our influence, and we can improve the life of others. And I want to end with this quote by a friend of mine, which I think is really powerful, that we as a church body can offer a place where people can share without fear of condemnation, where we listen more than we talk, where our advice stems from understanding and compassion rather than moral judgments. They find that the church faith is relevant. And I think this speaks very much to, the situation that many young people find themselves in. There's free resources. If you want to learn more, you can go to sdadata.org, or you can go to my website, which is jdim.digital. If you're curious about the book, it's available in both print and digital. It really goes into all the details of what digital discipleship and evangelism means, whether you're doing it on behalf of an official ministry or as an individual. You can check out the book at jdim.digital/book. And so now, Q&A. All right. So if you guys have a question, feel free to also unmute yourself and ask. Oh, somebody's saying COVID actually gave me an opportunity to share Pastor Tapp's message with some of my friends, which I wouldn't have done otherwise. And I just have to encourage you, do that and do it more. So I come from an atheist background. I converted early in my 20s, but my family is still non-believers. But I have found that the things I share, my mom pays attention to. So like, for example, today I shared my husband's message, his sermon on my Facebook page, and I know she'll listen to it. So more people are paying attention than you realize. And so, just be consistent, be persistent, and share what you can. Any other questions?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much once again for this wonderful presentation. And I love what you said about, the authenticity and
Mhm.
being able to show all the different sides and perspectives of ourselves. And I was talking to
Mhm.
somebody recently